They were all laughing. But no one knew that in the next few moments that laughter would be wiped off their faces forever. The hot sun was shining on the street, and the heat rising from the asphalt seemed as if even the earth was ashamed of the scene. Suddenly a cold bottle tipped over, and the sweet sticky cold drink began to flow over the frail shoulders of an old man. The old gray jacket, which had been his only support for years, was immediately soaked. The liquid began to drip into the cracks of the sidewalk and sparkle in the sun. Laughter echoed, merciless, loud and indifferent. 5 young men, perhaps 18 or 19 years old, were holding up mobile phones to capture the moment. Someone was saying, "Look how he's shaking," while someone was laughing and saying, "This video will go viral." The old man's name was George Miller. He was in his 20s. Once upon a time there was a mechanic in a workshop in Detroit, a man whose hands had fixed cars all his life, but today he himself was broken. Sitting next to him was his wife Rosa, with a wrinkled face, trembling hands, and tears in her eyes that she was trying in vain to hold back. The two of them were sitting on the side of the road because Rosa's knees were hurting badly. They had brought only a few things from a nearby store: bread, milk, and cheap medicine. George said in a trembling voice, "Son, please, what have we done to you?" But mercy was nowhere in the hearts of these young men. A boy shook the bottle again, and this time the liquid began to flow onto Rosa's scarf. She sobbed. The laughter grew louder. Across the road stood a 7-year-old girl. Her name was Amy Wilson. Tears were streaming from her eyes and her small hands had become fists. She suddenly came running and stood in front of the elderly couple, her little arms outstretched as if she could save them. "Stop it," she shouted, her voice breaking. "They're just like my grandparents." But one of the young men started filming. Her too, laughing. "Look, the little heroine," he said sarcastically. No one noticed that from the corner of the street a man was slowly walking towards the scene. His steps were firm, his manner calm, and his eyes had a quiet intensity that only someone who has seen much in life can recognize. His name was Daniel Miller, George and Rosa's only son. He had returned home after 2 years. A former Marine, he had seen war, seen destruction, but he had never been prepared to see his parents in this state. As he fully understood the scene, his steps stopped. His heart was beating fast, but there was no anger on his face, only a deep pain. He took a breath and kept moving forward. His heavy boots were clanking on the road. One of the young men caught sight of him and his laughter suddenly stopped. Then the others noticed too. No shouts, no threats, just a question in a deep calm voice: "What is all this?" No one had an answer. The bottle fell from his hand. The laughter died down. Daniel went straight to his parents, knelt down, and held his father's hand, which was still shaking. "Dad." "I'm here," he said softly. A scream escaped Rosa's eyes. She began to cry. She clutched her son's arm as if she wanted to believe that he wasn't a dream. The young men started to back away, but Daniel stood up. His voice was still not loud, but it had such power that the entire street fell silent. "You call it a joke," he said. "These are people who have worked hard their whole lives, earned respect, and you humiliated them for a few likes." There were tears in his eyes, but they weren't of anger, they were of disappointment. A young man said softly, We were just joking." Daniel took a step forward. Cruelty is no joke. Being strong is not about putting someone down, but about lifting the weak. Amy slowly approached Rosa and hugged her. George looked at his son, her voice barely coming out, "You're back." Daniel nodded. "Yes, Dad. And now we're going home." The three of them slowly walked towards the house. The young man stood behind, silent, ashamed, and feeling the weight of what he had done for the first time. The evening sun was setting, the sky filled with orange and pink. Sitting on the porch, George leaned against his son's shoulder, tired but safe. Rosa was silently watching the road, and Amy sat next to him. Daniel thought to himself that some wars are not fought on borders. Some wars are fought in our streets, in our hearts. And to win these wars, it takes humanity, not weapons. If you had seen all this with your own eyes, what would you have done? Would you have remained silent, or would you have moved forward? Because real strength is not in anger, but in kindness.